My name is Rabbi Moshe, and I serve the Coastside Jewish community on the other side of that hill. So when you ever come over to Half Moon Bay and Pacifica, if you see somebody surfing there, it might be me. But I wear a black wetsuit, so I'm sure. So I have a few things to share. First of all, here's a story about the true story of the world's first female rabbi. Now, you might not even know what a rabbi is, but it's a little bit like a leader, like a priest or a pastor, or like Reb Tovis. You know Reb Tovis, yeah? Okay, so she and I have a lot in common. And I think one thing that makes people like us do what we do is because we ask a lot of questions, especially a lot of why questions, like why does this happen? Why are things like that? It used to drive our parents crazy. I know it was the case for me. And so that's what this Passover holiday is all about. The most important part of celebrating Passover is the Seder, the meal, you know, on the first, usually the first or second night. And there's a couple of sections in the whole story when we're telling the story when the kids are supposed to ask the 4 questions, you know, and the whole Seder, the meal and the certain items that we have on our special plates are intended to inspire the children to ask, why is this night different from all other nights? On all other nights we eat bread and biscuits and cookies, but on this night we eat matzah. You've ever heard of matzah? It's these crackers here. And it doesn't have any, what do you call it? The fermentation, the yeast that makes it rise. So it's very, so it's all these pieces are broken. So it breaks really easily. But I just wanted to show you some of the symbols and explain their meaning. First of all, this is a beautiful Seder plate, isn't it? Yeah, you can see how old it is and how much devotion they have to telling the story. You can look at some of the pictures on here. There's stories about Abraham and Isaac and other famous stories from the Bible. And here's another beautiful Seder plate. This, not only does it have a place for each of the special items that we eat during the meal, like there's parsley that we dip in salt water to represent, the salt water represents the tears of the slaves that we were once in Egypt. I don't know if you know the whole story, and it's worth talking about. I gave some supplies to the guy who's going to be watching you a little bit later, so Garrett, right? So you'll have, you get to look at all those things to learn more about the story. There's the bitter herb, the horseradish that's really hot, and the roasted egg, and we once had a lamb bone. I won't go into all the meaning of all the ritual items right now. And then around the edge of the plate, if you were to take a closer look at that, you'd see each of the 10 plagues. Now, you know that plagues are bad things that happen. And there was 10 of them in the story. And the reason they happened was because Moses went to the Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, and said, "Let my people go." And Pharaoh said, "No, I want you to be my slaves." And that was so wrong. And so every time he said no, something bad happened. And he kept saying no, and he didn't learn his lesson. And he kept saying no, and each time something worse happened. And it just got, you know, where does it start? It starts with the blood, the water turning into blood, and then it goes all the way around here until just the most awful plagues happened. And eventually, the Israelite people went free. And we tell this story every year since then. This was like thousands of years ago. Like probably about 3,000 years ago. Every year we tell the same story because it's supposed to remind us that once we were slaves, but now we're free. And that we should always remember that and always understand what it's like to be oppressed. And we should fight for freedom not only for ourselves, but for all people. And so that's the essential message. You know, and at the end of the story, is a story about the parting of the sea. I don't know if you know that story, but it's like a miracle. Let me see if I can give you an example of a miracle. Matzah, the old matzah, this matzah is square, but when they make it in Israel, it's round. So you can pretend this is a round piece of matzah, okay? And so imagine that the matzah becomes broken. In this case, I'll tear it, right? Let's see if I can tear it in half. And that represents brokenness in our world. You know, like, let's see, I'll tear this too. And then I'll tear this. Well, let's see. And I'll tear that. And yet, a miracle happens when we work together, and we come together, and we work for justice and freedom, right? And then amazing things can happen. Like brokenness can be restored to wholeness. This. Wow. That's pretty amazing how that happens, right? So that's kind of like what I'm talking about with miracles, right? So anyway, go with Garrett. He'll teach you some more about that. But